Hey everyone, welcome to another video. Today we're going to talk about issue number 5 of the Immortal X-Men comic book series, which is part 2 of the Judgment Day event, written by Kieron Gillen. But before we dive into the story, I want to ask you a favor. If you enjoy this video, please leave a like and a comment to help the channel grow. So, much like the previous Immortal X-Men comic, this one still keeps the trend of tackling the narrative events from a council member's perspective, and as you may have guessed, Exodus is next up. So getting to the story, we pick up in a flashback or memory that takes place during the Crusade with a younger Exodus, who was traveling through the desert after the siege of Jerusalem. But unfortunately, our narrator is completely exhausted and on the verge of being dehydrated, for he states, his red skin is cracked and his mouth is parched, and because of that lack of nutrients, Exodus believes he is half of a mile away from dying. But no matter what, Exodus refuses to give up because Apocalypse is waiting for him, and real revelations are within his grasp. So with extreme willpower, he climbed over a sand dune, and to his shock before him was the Phoenix, burning in all its glory. Now given his state, he wasn't sure if it was real or if it was a hallucination, but what he did know for sure was that it was a sign. So as he witnesses the Phoenix aflamed, we skip over to the Quiet Council, minutes before they were invaded. And during this gathering, they are trying to figure out the motives of the Eternals as well as some evidence that was discovered by Forge. Because according to Charles, Forge studied the land around where Sinister was kidnapped, and he found traces of celestial technology signatures, which verified Destiny's visions. So with Sinister's kidnappers revealed, the question had to be asked given the nature of Nathaniel, and that was if he was even kidnapped to begin with, because for as long as they know, he could be working with the Eternals. But regardless if he is or isn't working with the Eternals, an example still has to be made. For during the Hellfire Gala, Emma read several of the CEO's minds and discovered that the humans see an opportunity to take advantage of Krakoa, due to them missing their heavy hitters like Apocalypse and Eric. And because of that, Emma states that they need people to be reminded that they are still strong, and if the Eternals are the first ones to try them, then so be it. Their future transgressions, if they were to attack, will need more than just a slap on the wrist. And because of that, she suggests briefing all the war captains and preparing their defenses. So with that said, a debate breaks out between her and Shaw, for Shaw sees no reason to wait to be attacked, but rather he wants to strike first. But to everyone's surprise, Exodus speaks up and reveals some of what he knows about the Eternals, because he states that they have their own cities, locked off from reality, citadels caught between molecules, as well as shadowing dimensions. And in those places, they have engines that can rebuild their bodies, time and time again. And because of that, they can besiege them at will, which will make attacking them far from being easy. And the reason how he knows this information is because, during his 1,000 years of existence, he has crossed paths with Eternals before. Because shortly after Apocalypse tried to recruit him to his false church, he met one and had a psychic battle, which he ended up winning. And through that interaction, he was able to learn a lot about them. So with that news out there, Destiny twitches in her chair, as we are thrust back into the past once more. And during this flashback, we see the end of Exodus's journey to become a herald of Apocalypse. But before he could truly serve under Apocalypse, he had to do one last test. He had to kill the man who was closer than a brother to him, which was this generation's version of the Black Knight, Garrington. Because throughout this whole journey, the Black Knight followed him across the desert and served alongside him during the Crusades. So during this fight between friends was where he first met the Eternal Cersei. Because while he was drunk with power and on the verge of killing his once friend, Cersei stepped in to defend him. But quickly he was able to overcome the two. So with the battle over, Exodus was moments away from killing Garrington, but right before he carried out the execution, a realization hit. And that realization was that Apocalypse was not a god who was asking Abraham to slay Isaac, but rather he was still being tested in the desert and tempted by the devil. So with the path forward clear to him, Exodus turned to fight Apocalypse, but during this fight, he didn't necessarily hate the man before him, because in his fate the devil serves a purpose, and as an adversary, he has a part to play. So in an epic battle between the two, Apocalypse ultimately came out on top over Exodus and buried him alive, and left him for dead. So with that established, we jump back to the present day where the Eternals just launched their psychic attack, using the Uni-Mind. Now for those who don't know, the Uni-Mind was a combination of all the Eternal psychic power put into a single psychic attack. A psychic attack that came crashing down on the council, for once it hit them in mid-conversation, everyone's bodies immediately went paralyzed. Because the Eternals were trying to stop them from acting by burying their minds in their past memories. But this was something Exodus couldn't allow to happen as he fought to stay awake. So as he fades in and out of consciousness, we jump into yet another flashback, but this time of Eric freeing him from his tomb, closer to the current day. And when he awoke, the world was vastly different, but as a man of fate he just followed Eric, and for a time he thought Magneto could be the Messiah. But, in time, the more he watched, the more he realized that Eric is but a mutant prophet, but it gave him time to learn and assemble his faith. For he now came to the conclusion that he is the one true church, because as a mutant his journey has shown him the cross from many different angles. So when you rotate the cross to the side it becomes an X, the symbol of the X gene, the symbol of the mutants. Now with the effects of the Uni-Mind fading, we skip back to the current day with a bloody Wolverine standing on the table before Hope with knives in his chest. So with everyone snapping out of the attack, they asked Logan what just happened, and which he fills them in. So with everyone caught up to speed, it was time for the mutants to punch back. So with that said, Charles chose to stay back to provide a defense for the council, which is crazy in its own right, for he alone was able to hold it at bay, while Emma, Hope, and Exodus went on the attack. So with the combination of the three, we see Exodus channeling their combined powers as he thinks to himself that he is a knight, and they are in the desert. And on his left hand is a diamond shield that represents Emma's protectiveness. And in his left hand was a burning sword to symbolize Hope's willingness to fight. For with these weapons, he is able to face the many-headed beast of the Eternals. So with that said, the fight was on, as Exodus fights his way into the Uni-Mind as the Eternals try everything possible to defeat him. So with the battle raging on, Exodus is still dipping in and out of consciousness, which for the last time forces us back into another memory, a memory that was his darkest moment, but at the same time the one that brought him the most hope. For this memory was during the days when the mutant population was completely destroyed, with only a few hundred remaining. And due to this cataclysmic event, Exodus took it upon himself to carry out these pilgrimages seeking purpose. But with the help of the sun's flames, he was able to find nothing, so ever so often he would return and torture his body to test his faith, carrying out mortification of the flesh. But before he was consumed by the flames completely, he remembered a child who was born, a child by the name of Hope Summers, the first mutant born after Wanda's decimation. And with this new life born, on that day he made her his Messiah, and promised never to kneel again for as long as his Messiah stands. So following that, Exodus is awakened by Hope Summer, with the news that their counterattack was a success, for the Eternals are in full retreat. But unfortunately, their victory is short-lived as Druid broadcasts to the world that the battle isn't over yet, for the mutants were allowed to live too long, and with the help of the Hex, they will right this deviation. So with the gigantic Eternals making their way to Krakoa, the council gears up for the next assault. But to their surprise, a portal opened from above as two members of the Hex descended from the sky. So with the fight officially back on, Exodus tells Hope to fall back to the healing gardens and do what she can as he charges headfirst into battle. And as he clashes with the Hex, Exodus thinks of a really cool speech in his inner dialogue, for he states, "I am the Pope of a new church like Peter was long ago." Now, Peter was the rock upon which the Nazarene mutants built his church. And yes, I could be considered the kind of rock that Peter used, and at the same time, I could be considered the rock in the hand of Cain. So with that said, issue number 5 of the Immortal X-Men and part 2 of the Judgment Day event comes to an end. Now, I hope you enjoyed this video, and please don't forget to leave a like and a comment if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.